welcome back to the class, everyone. We have a new conquest coming up in the next couple of days, and with that, a brand new character, Taron Malicos. And while at a nice glance, and according to CG, he's going to be really good in unaligned force user teams, I think there's a little bit more to him than meets the eye. So after that wonderful Transformers reference, let's analyze his kit just a little bit before we jump into all the different team comps I think he can be a part of. He is an attacker at his heart. We're not going to read every single line here, but we need to understand that he has different ways of gaining offense, crit damage, as well as defense penetration, which is essentially the holy trinity for attackers. He's going to be able to take out a lot of teams, ones that are really high in defense, ones that are really high in overall max health, because he has everything needed to be able to take them down. He fits the role of attacker quite perfectly. That being said, he does have a few limitations within his kit, and I have a spreadsheet for this, of what is going to happen when you stick him outside of a full unaligned force user team. Again, as I mentioned previously, that is how CG is marketing him, and I think while that's true, there's going to be a lot of other team comps that he's going to work really well in that can determine for whether you or for me, we should push after him through this conquest, whether that means unlocking him in 3 months or 6 months, really just anything to avoid proving grounds. So what does exactly he lose? Up here in red, we have his abilities. Over here on the left, we have the condition for that ability, and then what the actual outcome is from what you're getting between the two. So if he does not have all UFU allies, so essentially anything outside of a seer team, he's going to be losing a lot of defense penetration on his big hit, Vile Thrash, as well as the stun and healing immunity dispel that he brings to the team. If the lead is not unaligned force user, so this could be a special occasion. Let's say you want to put him with Supreme Leader Kylo Ren for some reason. We'll talk about that later. And that's going to be what this is going to look like, because the leader will be unaligned force user, but the rest of the team won't be. If you go that route, you are getting a reset cooldown of die, so you're getting to be able to reset this one through this ability. You're still getting to keep all of your stacking crit damage and offense, as well as you're also allowed to ignore taunt. And then he does get an additional 25% offensive boost for every single ally, although he can have 1 and get 25%, he can have 2 and get 50%. So these are really the stipulations. These are the things he loses if he does not have a lead that is unaligned force user, say Lord Vader, for example. And these are the things that he loses if he does not have all unaligned force user allies. So once we understand kind of what we're trading by putting in different comps, we can start to analyze this a little bit better. So we have a few comps that I picked out for him right away that I think he's going to be either good in, or at least it's worth entertaining the idea. In the first comp, and this is really gross, is going to be Inquisitors. Whether Grand Inquisitor or Third Sister Lead, he fits into them pretty stinking well, because if you haven't noticed, every single Inquisitor has the unaligned force user tag. So that fancy spreadsheet that we had up here just a second ago, he gets to keep all of this. He's getting 100% offense boost. He's ignoring taunt. He's going to be able to dispel their healing immunity. They shouldn't get stunned if you have Reva lead. I guess he can dispel the stun if you have Grand Inquisitor lead. He's going to get to keep all the stacking stuff. He's going to get to keep all of his defense penetration. He's going to get to work really well overall in the Inquisitor lead. And one thing that I think he will be able to change up the board on, specifically on defense for Reva, is he has this really... I feel like CG didn't see this all the way through. Whenever any other unaligned force user ally uses a special ability, Malicos assists. So while, in the beginning that seems whatever, all Inquisitors have about 2 specials, so he'll be assisting 8 times kind of in the first couple turns. Well, that doesn't really seem all that important until you look at Vile Thrash, what it does and what it allows him to do. In this ability, he is going to be able to get repost, or is it in this ability? Oh yeah, he gains repost for 2 turns. Repost means that if you get called out of your own turn to attack, you hit below protection. Right now, the one really budget counter that's beating the tar out of Reva on defense is Traya, and the big reason she can do it is because she sits behind piles and piles and piles of bonus protection. He doesn't care. He's going to hit below that every single time one of the other Inquisitors is using one of their abilities. So the Traya that's sitting there, the Nihilus, or really whoever it is, they're going to be taking damage directly to their health. They're not going to be able to sit behind those piles of bonus protection. That's really the only thing that's keeping them safe and keeping them from getting slaughtered. So while I don't know if this is going to completely just throw that counter in the trash, it might, depending on the ability, it might actually make it easier. If you're dragging Nihilus under 90% without being able to kill him, then he'll get to annihilate someone rather important, probably Reva herself. But this is going to add a complication to that fight. So that pretty much brings us to the whole point of this video. If you don't have Seer built up like myself, and you're just thinking, oh, you know, I can take a year or two to get this character, I'm not going to have those anytime soon, we might need to rethink that possibility. And I realize also Reva's probably not the most accessible character in the world, so we have other examples. But that right there is going to have some other places to be used outside of the team that CG is subscribing. The Inquisitors are a good one specifically because of that Trey interaction of him getting to hit below protection. Next up, this is what we're going to call the Normie comp. I think this is what CG is expecting everyone to just do right out the gate. As you Seer, Ahsoka, Cal, probably Crew, maybe not Crew. I mean, Night Sister's probably fine. I do want a tank here. I don't like leaving Taron alone just purely because he has a savior mechanic built in to this. I believe it's the Omicron here. Yeah, the first time another dark side or light side user would fall to 1% health. If he's active, they gain 100% health and protection. So it's essentially exactly what Savior is, except for a little bit better, because they're going to gain damage immunity and all these buffs on top of that stuff. So he adds a lot to that team. His also Grand Arena Omicron, where there cannot be revives, is going to be really helpful. It's going to help this team versus Dash and maybe even the new Night Sister team, where pretty much revives just all get thrown down the toilet. I think it's actually this unique in here. At the very end, enemies defeated by allies can't be revived. This effect persists if Malicos is defeated, which, by the way, that's like the one effect in a unique that really should persist beyond, because it really sucks if you perma-kill, say, Asajj, and then they kill your Taron, and it's like, oh, Asajj can come back now. And like, no, Asajj was perma-killed. That means permanently. So that's another team that he's probably going to fit in pretty well. One thing that I think was worth saying, but I don't love this yet, and that is with Starkiller. So Taron Malicos is a dark side unaligned force user, meaning that he can work alongside Starkiller in the right comp. I do overall like these 5 just because Barriss and Savage Opress, well, they aren't going to get to take advantage of any of the unaligned force stuff that Taron or Seer is going to be doing in this comp. They have a lot of plug-and-play viability. Zarus kind of heals everyone without conditions. Savage himself is going to be able to taunt and do everything that he needs to do on his own. He kind of has his whole kit wrapped into one. It's one of the reasons why he's somewhat decent at soloing. So this team could be a really big pain in the butt on defense. I guess maybe if someone has like a 5-person Padme Gideon thing. Oh, yeah, Padme Gideon, that could work. You kill Savage and then kill Taron, but it's an option. If you're wanting and needing more teams to pull your Palp and your Mar to another team, or maybe you just realize it's gotten figured out, you still want to put this team on defense, but you're tired of people using their General Grievous against it, again, it's another option of a team that he's going to be able to go into. Next up, I'm not going to do this, but it's worth mentioning. This is going to be super annoying. So we have Lord Vader here with 2 unaligned force users. We do lose quite a bit of Taron's kit because not only are not all of the allies Ufus, but on top of that, we're also don't have an Ufu leader, different from the Seer team and the Starkiller one. So we're losing defense pen, the healing immunity or stun dispel, that's all gone. We're not going to be able to ignore taunt. Don't get any of this fun stuff. But one of the interactions here that's going to be super annoying is Maul has a tendency to take like 7 turns in the very beginning with this frenzy. And what he's going to do is he's going to unleash Seething Rage about 5 times and then do his other special on top of it. So he's going to get 6 turns in a row using specials. And if you remember what we previously said about him in the Inquisitor comp, he's going to be assisting every single time. So you're no longer just having to do with the 5 pieces of DPS from when he's hitting, but you're also going to have to worry about Taron coming in to assist every single time. I don't think the repost is really worth mentioning here because, number one, your Maul's probably going to do that before he even gets a turn to be able to go off. And on top of that, if Maul's hitting above protection and he's bidding below, it's not really going to make that much of a difference unless you run into a specific Traya type circumstance. The other thing that's probably worth mentioning why this could be semi-decent is because Lord Vader, how his kit is built, is it's all about Empire and Darkside unaligned force users. So while a lot of Taron's kit gets neutered because of this, Lord Vader gets to keep the majority of his because everyone else does meet the requirements. So you're not really hindering him. This is a little different. I didn't mention this at the beginning. This is a little different than the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors actually lose their impatience or patience unique while putting Taron there, because while again he doesn't lose any of his buffs by being in the team, they lose some of theirs because they do require to have all Inquisitorious allies for that unique. They get to keep a lot of the other cool stuff that's not really super contingent on it, like Reva's lead still gets the speed, still gets the anti-stun, still gets the healing immunity, still gets the death mark. A lot of the stuff, really good stuff, is still in there as far as her team goes. This is another one that I'm probably never going to use, but it's worth mentioning. If you, for whatever reason, are really wanting to run the Maul Mando team, maybe you don't have Lord Vader, that's fine, and you're running low on Mandalorians, you keep wanting to use Bam in his own team, you want to use Mando in a Bounty Hunter team, you want to use Jango in a Separatist team, you want to use Armor with C, and you just keep running out of Mandalorians, but you want to keep this team intact, he can kind of fit here. It's nice because there won't really be a tank going after him, and you have to remember, not only is he going to assist every single time that Maul does Seething Rage, as previously mentioned in the Lord Vader comp, but he's also an unaligned force user. So going again back to our spreadsheet here, he's going to be able to keep all of this stuff with the stacking crit damage and offense. He's going to be able to ignore taunt. He's going to be able to reset his own cooldowns. He does get to keep a lot of the fun stuff that he wants because Maul is in the leader slot. So if you're needing to pull these characters to other places, he'll work. I don't think you're going to unlock any new counters via this. But again, if you're just trying to pull Jango to another squad, that's completely acceptable. This one's probably pointless. I really don't like this, actually. This is one I would argue against. There's one big problem here, and it's similar to the Inquisitorious. Wow. Taron gets to do a lot of the stuff that he wants to do here because the leader is an Ufu and Darkseid and all that. Hux is really nitpicky about who goes on his team. There are exceptions to this, like Night Sisters, because they bring a lot to the table. But if all allies are first order at the start of the battle, enemies can't gain bonus turn meter. So Taron is not first order, which means if you stick this guy in here, any enemy can now gain turn meter pretty much whenever. So you might just flat out open up troopers to beating your SLKR if you're sticking this on defense. And I don't really think this unlocks anything on offense. Like, I don't really know what's going on here. I mean, he has anti-revive capabilities, and he does a lot of damage. And SLKR is like, I already do both of those things. So he's not really adding a whole lot to this team. I mean, it might be fun to throw your opponent off or something like that for funsies, but I don't see that ultimately having a lot of the value. Basically, what I'm getting at is if you have SLKR and that's your main team, and you're like, oh, I can put him in there, I should push for Conquest. Maybe do 6 months. Same. This one is just a not first order, a unaligned force user team that'll work for 3v3. This is pretty much the best of both worlds. Not only do you get Seer, who has all of her unaligned force user characters, but Taron does too. And then Starkiller, he is going to be able to keep all of his bonuses because he only needed 2 characters to meet the requirement in 3s, and both of them do. The only thing I don't like about this is with no tank, you're probably going to be able to do some really stupid stuff to Taron right in the beginning. You're going to be able to bypass the savior mechanic. You're probably just going to go in and kill Seer. I wouldn't be surprised if Padme Gideon, Troopers, Jedi Knight Revan, if all of those teams just kind of mow over this. The one thing you really have going for you is the element of surprise that people aren't going to really know how to handle this in the very beginning, but I don't really know if that's worth throwing away your Starkiller. So each their own, it's an option. And then this one, we're going to probably need for the question and answer to come out for this character. But right now, both in wording and in code, it appears that his Omicron ability here that is just universally stopping revives, this doesn't appear to be contingent on the previous statement if all allies were unaligned force users. It seems to be separate. I don't think it's actually applying to this. And if someone out there understands the code really stinking well and can make a comment on this, please do. But from what I've discerned in it, this is its own thing. It's only looking for if you're in Grand Arena, enemies defeated by allies can't be revived. This gives him a pretty large amount of plug and play viability. Not quite to the point of watt, but almost kind of a half watt. Because if he can just make the entire team perma-kill anything, you're going to start to be able to put him in certain team comps that, A, just don't make sense, where it can actually be better. One of the things that Jedi Master Kenobi really struggles at when going against Jabba is if he's fighting against Chrysanthemum, you kill Chrysanthemum and he comes right stinking back, and then you have to deal not only with him taunting, but everything else he does. You stick Taron in this team, Cat's First Leap perma-kills him, you can go right after Boosh, and then suddenly the battle is a lot easier. I realize there are other ways to do that, but this is just another use that he can have. And that's just one. That's a very end game example. But if you're trying to get your General Grievous to beat Night Sisters, and they're really struggling because they keep reviving and you can't really catch up to Daka quite fast enough, just throw them in there and everyone's dead instantly. Again, that is a little bit to be determined, because I want to see what CG has to say about that in their question and answer, and if someone asked that, and if it really does just apply to all, or does he have to be in a specific full unaligned force user camp like the Seer team, or maybe or this Seer team, right? Really, I guess that would be the Inquisitor team. It would allow him to get permakills here, and that actually could be really helpful against Jabba, again, if you're trying to bypass Kersantin's taunt, or, I mean, Inquisitors really don't need help against Jolee at this point. They just kind of slaughter all the Jedi. That is going to be it for this. Let me know if there's any other teams out there where you think he might be useful. Obviously, if you can't get red or gold or whatever crate and conquest, then it just is what it is. But if you see a lot of value in one of these teams that we mentioned today, and you can push it at least to get him within the first 6 months, I do highly suggest it. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.